Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art and to its great hall. For those of you who aren't familiar with this room, let me just give you a very brief sketch of where you are. This hall opened in 1859 when Peter Cooper built the Cooper Union. He wanted a hall for the discussion of civic, political, social, and philosophical issues, and this was the place in New York. It was from this lectern in 1860 that Abraham Lincoln gave the speech that he claimed propelled him to the presidency. And since then, 7 other American presidents, many heads of state, all sorts of other statesmen, philosophers, scientists, artists, architects have spoken here. The women's suffrage movement had a very big presence here. Susan B. Anthony had her office in this building. And on November 12th, we are going to have a big event, which you can see on our website, celebrating the 200th anniversary of the birth of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and the beginning of a 5-year New York City program going up to the centennial of the women's right to vote. So come on the 12th. You can get all the information on our website at cooper.edu. Other events that have happened here are the first public meeting of the NAACP, many movements many meetings of the American labor movement. The predecessor of the American Red Cross was founded here. And in 1978, of course, the great subway map debate took place on this stage. Now, I have just a couple of questions for you. How many people here came by subway tonight? Raise your hands. How many of you needed to consult the map? Okay, well, it's my pleasure tonight to present Peter Lloyd, who is a subway map historian, a freelance writer, and the author of the forthcoming trilogy on the subject, The Diagram Decades. And Peter Lloyd will introduce the rest of the program to you. Peter.
Good evening and welcome to the show that never ends. And I don't mean this evening, although you may have thought that way with this long wait to get started, for which I apologize. No, I mean the transit system, which is 111 years old today. And I'm sure will keep rolling until the last syllable of recorded time. The subway map is a little bit older because people had subway maps to show how the system was going to evolve. This is from 1897, and it shows the simplest approach to mapping the subway. You simply draw a line on top of a detailed street map. The next year, William Barclay Parsons evolved the map a bit by abstracting a lot of those streets. But still, the basic idea is very simple and doesn't involve any information design problems. It's just a straight line. And if you have a very simple transit system, then you don't need debates about it. You just draw the line. But as soon as you start to get any complexity at all in the map, then problems start to crop up. Something as simple as just having some forks in the system create a problem. Because how do you know where the trains are going from and going to? The train from Eastville, does it go to the north or the south of Westville? You can't tell from this map. It's an insufficient map. And for most of the last century, we had a table of service information, which listed in readable form, often very terse and difficult to read, telling you where the trains went. What happened in the 1960s was a big shift away from this very ancient idea of just drawing a line showing where the tracks are and listing the services. A guy called Raleigh D'Adamo, whom we're very honored to have here this evening, thought, why don't we show individual routes with a different color? And it seems so obvious now with retrospect. Of course, it's the most natural thing to show the different routes on a subway system by different colors. But at that time, it was fairly revolutionary. And it caught on. The idea of having colored routes stayed, although Raleigh's notion of intertwining the colors along the trunk didn't. An alternative to intertwining the colors is to draw each colored route separately. Still, we have the notion of colored routes, but now they're in parallel lines. And it still works if you have more than one trunk, although now it gets a bit more difficult to read. Another way of doing it is to forget about colors for the individual routes and write down at the ends of the line or at each station which routes stop. So here we have R, G, and B written alongside the station names. So it's no longer a visual piece of information, it's lexical. And if there's more than one trunk, you can use a different color for each trunk. That, in a nutshell, is the history of the New York subway map. There are pros and cons of these different approaches, and it complexifies further when you bring in express and local services, and when you consider the question of whether to add in topographical information or not. I'll now have a great pleasure and honor to introduce to you somebody who shaped the modern subway map, who dragged us from the previous half century in which the subway maps just showed the lines and did not show the routes, to the modern period where we could read off the routes by looking at the map. Will you please welcome Mr. Raleigh D'Adamo.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it.